This video is all about the three different options you have for the slotted cardboard sculpture. So our design challenge for this is to create a slotted sculpture using cardboard to create a 3D freestanding sculpture inspired by an artist. You'll be learning the techniques and practice creating slots and sliding separate pieces of cardboard together to combine the shapes without the use of an adhesive. So no glue. You're going to create shapes that can be combined together from the cardboard, and you're going to learn about some artists. For this project, you're going to need at least 3 of the materials in your art kits: scissors, white railroad board, and Sharpie. Possible extra materials would be an X-Acto knife, a cutting mat, ruler, paint, colored pencils, and or markers. So the cardboard. So in your art kits, you all have white railroad board, so that's the thin cardboard. So that's going to be your main material. You can also go out and buy poster board if you run out. So you can easily go to the dollar store, Target, Meijer, Walgreens, pretty much any store will have poster board. There is a video tutorial of how to build with the cardboard, how to create these slotted sculptures. So the link is on this slide. Okay. So if you decide to do this project, click on the link and watch the video. For grading, you're going to be graded on how you use the materials to create your 3D sculpture. You have to use at least 20 pieces. So 20 pieces of cut cardboard needs to be put together to create your final artwork. You're also going to be graded on the ability to invent an original sculpture using the slotted sculpture technique, craftsmanship, so how neat and tidy everything is, so making sure that you're cutting your cardboard neatly, there's no rips in it, no bends, no folds. Whatever drawing or painting or coloring you do, that's all done nice and neatly with intention. You'll be graded on your attention to the edges and surface pattern. If you choose to do one of the options with color, it'll be part of your grade. The reference to the artist, so each of the 3 options do refer to a specific artist, so I'll be looking for how you're referencing them. And then lastly is your participation during class time, so that is uploading your progress photos onto ClassKick at the end of each class. So your 3 options for inspiration are by different artists. We have Joan Moreau, Pablo Picasso, and Jean Dubuffet. So look at each one and see what your slotted sculpture could look like from each option. So Joan Miró. So he was a famous Spanish Catalan artist from Barcelona who produced surrealist and abstract designs across painting, sculpture, and ceramics through the majority of the 20th century. So below you'll see a couple of photos of him with his artwork. And for this project, we're really going to be concentrating more on the paintings that he did and have the style that he worked with. So on the right, we have his painting The Sun from 1949. So at Joan Miró, he dealt a lot with shapes. So if you remember, shapes are 2D. They are flat. They can be geometric, like squares, circles, triangles, or they can be organic, like blobs. So Joan Miró did kind of a mixture of the two. So he kind of divided up his figures and subjects into these basic shapes. So you can see in this example, we have what looks like could be a person, okay, maybe a female wearing a dress. Okay. Then we have some sort of creature at the bottom, a horse or a dog. We're not really sure, but that's kind of the beauty of the abstract, is that each person can kind of interpret it their own way. But with all the figures, they really are broken down into those kind of basic shapes. Here are a few more examples of his artwork. We have the singing fish on the left. Okay, so once again, here we've got the fish, and it is broken down into these kind of triangular and rectangular shapes throughout. Then we have the smile of the flamboyant wings on the right. Similar concept with that. Okay, with his paintings, he does a lot of outlining. So you'll notice that a lot of his shapes do have that nice black outline around them to kind of contain them. So, instructions if you decide to go the Moreau route. So this is an option where you would be using colors. So if you happen to have any colored pencils or markers or paint at home, you'll be able to use those. In addition, you'll be using the white of the cardboard itself and black from the Sharpie that's in your art kit. So the main colors you'd be using are red, yellow, blue, which are our primary colors, along with green. So if you look back at Moreau's artwork, those are really the main colors he's using. He's using a lot of those primary, the red, yellow, blue, and then in addition, green. So what you'll do for this is on your railroad board, you would draw a bunch of Moreau-inspired shapes and characters. So be creative with this. Remember, this doesn't have to look exactly like a person or an animal. Okay? It can just kind of reference and really break it down into those basic shapes. So on the right, you see some examples. We have the railroad board. Then we have all these kind of crazy characters and animals and things kind of drawn out. So you would draw them out. I suggest drawing it out in pencil first, because if you make a mistake, you can easily erase it. Once you're happy with your designs, you would go over your shapes with the black marker that's in your art kits, and then you'll cut out the shapes like cookies. Okay? So you would just cut right along the edges. Okay? Once they're cut out, you'll add color. Okay? Both of the sides should have a design. So maybe one side has more of this detailed design, and then the other side could just be color shapes. From there, you'll cut notches, and then you'll build it. Okay? At the end, you'll be photographing your artwork against a plain backdrop, 3 views, and a selfie. So here are some examples of students at work creating their designs. So with these, you do have some options. So you could cut them out exactly along the edges, or you could leave some space around so that your little characters and figures are kind of floating in their own little space. So totally up to you how you want to do this. So you can see with this person, you know, they have their designs on the one side, and then the other side is just a nice solid color. So once you cut them up and they're painted and everything, you know, try to build. Okay? And with this, you know, cut at least one slit in each, and then start connecting them. See what works together. Okay? There's no perfect way that these will go together because each piece is going to be unique and individual. So try different setups. So just some examples of different setups. And one thing I suggest is have some pieces be bigger, some be smaller, so that way you have some of that variety and variation. Okay, smaller pieces can sit more on the top of your sculpture. Bigger pieces will act better as a support on the bottom so that your sculpture can stand. There is a video on kind of finding the inspiration with Moreau. Okay, so you can click on this and give it a little watch. It's a short video, it's about 2 minutes long, but it kind of just goes through this process a little bit. Okay. Your second option is inspired by Jean Dubuffet. So Jean Dubuffet was a French painter and sculptor. His work is marked by a rebellious attitude toward the prevailing notions of high culture, beauty, and good taste. So basically, he didn't like all the fancy stuff that was happening in France, so he kind of went up against it. He started making art at the age of 41, so he got into it pretty late in the game, which is totally okay. And he did this after he was in the army, and was a wine merchant, so he did a little bit of everything. His monumental sculptures first appeared in 1962, and his ideas were connected to the hour loop cycle and were interested in representing cells. His models emerged from a block of polystyrene that he sculpts with hot wire. So his technique is very unique. He's not just using, rock and carving away or building with clay. He's using kind of this weird material and hot wire to sculpt. He explains that his experience is with working with the wire is as liberty and ease as pencil gliding over paper. Okay, so here's a photo of him working. And here's some of his sculptures. Okay, so with his sculptures, they are very, very organic in form. Okay, so he very rarely uses any geometric shapes, straight lines, sharp corners, things like that. They're very blobby. So in his are black and white. Doesn't really use color very frequently. So with his pieces, he has these organic blobs, and then he uses black to kind of outline the edges and create line work design in the middle. So in downtown Chicago, there is a sculpture of his. So maybe this looks vaguely familiar because you've walked by the sculpture before. So instructions for this. So your main colors are black and white. You can consider adding one or two accent colors if you want. So the example on the right is him using red and blue within, but it's totally optional. If you do not have any paint markers or colored pencils, that is okay. Just stick with the black and white, okay? Because the black and white is still very dynamic and interesting. So for this, you would on your railroad board draw a bunch of organic inspired shapes, cut them out like cookies, and then on the front and back you would draw your black outlines with the Sharpie that's provided in your art kit. And then within, you can just add more designs. Okay, so definitely be inspired by his stuff. Okay, this isn't representational. It's not supposed to look like anything specific. It's just about kind of that organic, loose feel of it. If you want to add colors, by all means, go for it, but just use it as an accent. Don't go crazy overboard with the color. From there, you'll cut your notches, you'll build it, then you'll photograph it, just like with the other one. Okay. So here you can see some students at work. So they're just cutting out a bunch of organic shapes. Okay. Once again, you have to have a minimum of 20 shapes. Okay, so kind of be considerate of that as you're cutting. Have some that are bigger, some that are smaller. Having that variety helps. From there, you'll add your black outlines, and then you can add in other lines in between. Okay. And here is kind of a finished piece with two different views. Okay, so totally up to you as far as how you want to work with the black striping. So in this example, it's just an outline along the edge. Okay. If you want to add line work in the middle, by all means, go for it. In the end, you are the artist. So here's an example that has designs drawn within. Definitely consider the thickness of your mark. So how thick is that black line along the edge? How thick are those lines of the designs within? Okay, because that can definitely change the overall look and feel of your sculpture. And then our last option is inspired by Pablo Picasso. So Picasso was a Spanish painter, sculptor, printmaker, ceramicist, and stage designer. So he did a lot of stuff. He's considered one of the greatest and most influential artists of the 20th century. He experimented and explored a variety of art making techniques. Him and Georges Braque are considered and recognized as the founders of Cubism. So that was a movement in the early 1900s. Cubism is a style of art which aims to show all of the possible viewpoints of a person or an object all at once. So basically, if you look at a person, you see the front, the side, the top, and the back of them all at once. It's called Cubism because the items represented in the artwork look like they are made out of cubes and other geometric shapes. So this sculpture is based on his Cubist work. Okay? In particular, his portraits. Okay, so here are some of Picasso's sculptures. So for this one, you are looking more at the portraits, so the artwork that looks like people. And with this, it doesn't have to look like a photograph. Right? This is meant to look a little kooky and crazy, and that's the beauty of the Cubism. But you'll notice that with each of these sculptures, you kind of see all different angles and viewpoints of the person. So you see a front view, you see kind of a weird side angle, you see them from the back, from the top, all the different views. So for this, this is primarily black and white, but if you want to add color, you're more than welcome to, but once again, do not go crazy with the color. You want to try to keep it as pure black and white. When you start to work, you'll plan out the general shape of your portrait or portraits. Cut out the shapes and consider starting with a larger neck or skull shape. So with this, definitely a little bit more of the pre-planning comes into play. Definitely drawing things out with pencil first, having that good idea to work with. So you'll kind of draw out all of your pieces. Then you'll color the front, color the back by adding features and more details because we want to be able to see that it is a person. There should be eyes, nose, mouth, ears, all that good stuff. Then you'll cut notches, build your sculpture, and photograph it. So here is an example. So kind of the same sculpture but different views of it. So what's fun about this is that, the placement of facial features can be kind of all over the place. Okay? The eyes do not have to be next to each other. Okay? One eye could be way higher up, okay, than the other. Okay? The mouth could be crooked. Okay? So it's kind of the beauty of it. Okay? So for this, have some multiple faces, have a neck. You can have, some of your pieces be like an ear that just gets attached randomly somewhere, or hair that gets attached somewhere, or a nose, or an eye. So definitely make it your own. Okay. Last slide, this is just kind of a fun little video about how artists are using this slotted sculpture idea using a laser cutter. So if you've got time, you can go ahead and watch this video. Link is at the bottom. But just kind of moving forward, slotted sculptures, that can be done in a lot of different ways.